Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, welcome. And thank you so very much for being here. Yes, I am Kim Serafini. And first and foremost, I think I'm just a beautiful human being or an earth angel. And I'm also a pretty clever girl when I want to be. But at the best of times, I forget the wisdom that I have or what I've learned. And that's actually part of the reason for today's, let's call it a workshop or a class or part of the overarching extended course that is positively priming ourselves. Anger. Anger is an interesting emotion. Shouldn't and can't be suppressed. It's part of the reptilian brain, that ancient part of us in terms of our reactions. It happens in fractions of milliseconds in pre-conscious processing. So very few people have enough conscious awareness and stillness to catch themselves before they feel angry. Now, having said that, one fact, yes, one fact changed everything for me. Just one fact. I read that 15 minutes of anger or feeling angry is the equivalent of chain smoking a packet of cigarettes. And my beautiful friend who's here today with us, who's a nurse, knows that one would never do that if one was sane. And yet I was a chain smoker at one point in my life. Can you believe it? Yes. And so that particular piece of information that came out of the field of positive psychology literally had me gripped. I was paying attention to it. The interesting thing is that I dived a lot deeper. You can go and watch another couple of recordings of classes that I've done. And in fact, we'll even put a link in. I did one recently for a networking group based out of Canada. And I told a lot more of my story about who I am and how I came to be me and doing this work. And so, you know, if you just watch the first 15 minutes of that recording, I think we can save time. And we're going to assume that most of you know my background. It's one thing to know what to do and a very different thing to do what you know. And knowing what was bad for me was making me even more angry as I continued to do the thing that I shouldn't do, or I wouldn't, in my wise beingness, choose to do. And yet I was addicted to a chemical compound, nicotine being it, except that's an excuse. Because if you look a whole heap deeper, whether you believe in traumatic childhood experiences that have left you scarred and so there's, you know, healing that needs to be done, or whether you just look at being a sensitive human and you're overwhelmed by the world and the way it is right now, anger is pervasive. And for those of us who believe in or understand about quantum physics, we know that when we are in the energy of others who are experiencing a strong emotion, it's called emotional contagion by the scientists for a reason, because we catch the emotion. Our mirror neurons that are in our brain that are activated by what we're seeing in the retina of our eyes, which of course is the underlying premise, one of the very important parts of the secret formula that is positive prime and why and how it works. But anyway, back to, you have mirror neurons in your brain. That's what we use to learn as children. Our eyes see, and it's almost like we catch this debilitating, destructive, damaging virus that is this negative emotion. And yet the full range of emotions need to be experienced in life and can't and shouldn't be suppressed, because that's like a big beach ball that's pushed underneath the water. Eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to let go and it's going to pop in your face. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, don't they? And so there has to be elegant ways, graceful ways, efficient ways to actually deal with anger and everything that is on that spectrum. Most people think that we feel angry because we've been aggrieved. There's a much deeper conversation that you can have with yourself or with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a coach or a counselor or a social worker. And that's about, it really comes down to your expectations. When people don't conform, they don't meet your expectations, the most common reaction within you, even if you don't show it, is anger. Angry that things aren't the way that you think they should be, could be, or would be. That's for all circumstances and situation and people's behavior. But really, ultimately, it's about what we expect. And so it's about our values. And then it becomes about our judgments and what we believe is right or wrong in the world. And so anger is this very interesting emotion that arises that we are in control of. And yet one of the sparks that lights the fire that becomes a raging forest fire or bushfire in your life or within your body is, quite frankly, when you think that you're justified in being angry and you have lots of evidence to substantiate why you're right, and you want to actually maintain that I'm rightness. There are a couple of things that I think that you should be at least aware of and acknowledge. For as long as you hold anything that causes you to feel remotely like you could be angry, even if we want to use some different language to try and tone it down so that we can feel better about ourselves and the way that we're behaving, reacting, showing up, and then going to be responding. The interesting thing is most of us are control freaks. I talk about that a lot in other classes, right? We have an insatiable appetite to be right because it's part of our survival mechanism. When a threat was presented to us way back when we were cave men and women, we had to be accurate or correct, another word for right. We had to be right about the way that we judged using our senses, the threats. Were they foes or were they friends? One of the things that our brand new research that has emerged because of the work we've done at the University of Technology, Sydney, in their brain computer interface lab, is that the humans who watch a pure positive prime session with our formula, we're searching and seeking, we're searching and seeking, we're looking, we're searching and seeking, we're looking. It's part of the primal instincts that we have for friends. We know that we need support when faced with a threat. It's actually our first choice. So if you were to cascade, do we freeze? Do we fly away? Do we run away? Do we fight? The first thing we actually do is we seek out friends. We seek out support. Who's going to help us? But if we're angry, people don't want to help us because we're toxic. Now, I live in a part of Australia where there are really, really, really venomous, deadly snakes. One, and the venom, the poison, is so toxic, you will die within 20 minutes. You don't have time to call the ambulance. You're gone. That venom, for me, is like anger. Now, there are some snakes where there are anti-venoms. Thank goodness. Haven't they saved a lot of lives, particularly here down under? And I know also in North America. And so some of what we're going to go through are actually, for me, the way that I position them is they're like anti-venom. And the number one at the top of the list, in case you want to write it down, is gratitude. It's the easiest thing for you to reach to. It's a sentence or a question, a statement. It's no matter what is making you angry in this millisecond, this moment, what could I be grateful for if I should be grateful? Because in this state of this negative emotion, you're shoulding all over the place. I know there are lots of other, gurus and personal development authors and speakers who talk about shoulding all over yourself. It is quite like the other stuff, the feces all over yourself. So when we're in righteousness, like I'm right, I'm going to defend my position. I've got a reason to be angry. I'm justified. It's okay. Someone has wronged me, or the government has, or the weather has ruined my hair, or whatever, right? Depending upon how many, and there could be millions of, like, we're talking microscopic specks of anger causing dust. Depending upon how many millions of specks there've been in the previous 24 hours or 7 days or 365 days, you'll be either the full glass where if the jug just literally pours one more drop in, you're overflowing, right? So your pre-conscious processing has already been triggered. You're already primed for this reaction. So shall we go straight to our PowerPoint presentation? Then I'm going to talk to you about some beautiful, exciting stuff. A lot of people, I must admit, have a lot of misunderstanding around anger. That was me. And a lot of us have had role models or have had people in our lives who have demonstrated that one of the appropriate reactions in their repertoire is anger. Being angry, they're either yelling or screaming. Some people even have these myths or stories in society, like people who are born in August who are Leos on the stars spectrum, they roar with anger and then they quiet down, you know, and then they become pussycats again. So let's just do a very quick recap so that we're all on the same page. Anger is very natural. It happens. And allowing ourselves to process it very quickly is an art and a science. And it's a habit and it's practice, and it doesn't come as naturally as the emotion, right? We actually produce a whole heap of chemicals, hormones. There are physical reactions to these emotions. Now, there are lots of emotions, and there are actually emotions that you can clump together in categories. But suffice to say that the chemical cocktail that's created inside your body of all of these beautiful biological processes and these responses, they're actually necessary if you really are under threat. But they're very not necessary. Can I say they're definitely not what you want to be experiencing on a day-to-day basis, even a weekly basis. Like, we were designed as humans in the cave days to live happily ever after in our little communities, in our huts, and in our small family units. And if a man had to go out and hunt and then he went so far as to not be able to come back to his family or his tribe, he just continued, and then he went and joined another tribe, right? We didn't face threats very often. There's all sorts of new research, you know, like I've seen just recently, how many bad pieces of news do we all see, when even when I was a child, it was really tough to see more than maybe 1 or 2 pieces of bad news in one newspaper, because most people didn't have 100 different things on their feed from 100 different sources from all over the world. They had their local news in a printed newspaper, and they had only one. And so the strange thing is, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, we cannot process all of the triggers in today's world. We cannot, we were not designed to, and it is actually literally leading to the breakdown of not only society, but of us as humans in terms of our physical ability to actually feel joy or to thrive. So some of these esoteric concepts about really finding life delicious, we become much more skeptical and cynical about, because it's almost impossible in this day and age, right? It is actually almost impossible. So no one should be feeling like, why can't I just be really happy and joyful and ambitious and gorgeous and delightful and cheerful and effervescent? And because the bombarding is actually relentless, usually because we have social media. And even when we don't have social media and we walk into a bar, particularly in North America, there are at least 5, if not 10 TV screens, all delivering to you different channels, it is too much information. And most of the information, as we know, the media specializes in the exaggeration, because if it bleeds, we read. It captures our attention, and they're all fighting for attention, because if they don't have our attention, then they all can't make their advertising dollars, right? So I actually created Positive Prime, and then to test it more than 10 years ago at Bond University, we got these machines where we actually did saliva testing, and we wanted to see whether there was a cortisol change when you watched a Positive Prime session, because cortisol is extremely damaging, and most of us produce way too much of it. And a lot of us produce it consistently and persistently. And then we wonder why we have autoimmune diseases on the rise. We wonder why we have cardiovascular disease on the rise. We wonder why we have all these inflammatory issues like arthritis. Essentially, the bottom line is it has a lot to do with this particular emotion called anger, right? Now, one of the other things is I want to draw your attention here. Dopamine is actually produced when we experience this emotion called anger. And we as human beings are particularly susceptible to addiction to dopamine. That's actually why social media is an addictive behavior, because of the dopamine releases. That happens when something happens quite quickly. Now, you can either have yourself in a situation where that's healthy or unhealthy. And when I talk about health, I actually talk about holistic global health. I talk about your emotional health, your financial health, your mental health, your physical health. I'm talking about health in the broadest sense. I'm talking about the health of your relationships, and then of course the health of our environment, and then of course the health of our globe. So the interesting thing is that I started to focus on how to reverse the effects of anger. Now, the fact is, no one is going to turn off the anger reaction. It's primal. It happens in pre-conscious processing. It's part of the reptilian brain, right? So there are lots of these incredible gurus who go, oh, I don't feel anger. That's just total BS, right? If you're alive, you feel anger. It's okay to feel anger so long as you process it exceptionally, efficiently and effectively, elegantly and gracefully, with no unintended consequences and implications that are damaging, right? So as a sports therapist, because all of you know that I studied osteopathy and exercise physiology, etc., when somebody injures themselves, at the site of injury, the body actually sends all this beautiful blood, which is oxygenated and nutrient rich, and it actually creates something called exudate. And that's actually around an injury, and that has all of the healing properties required. However, it causes swelling. And what happens with swelling is that these swollen, damaged cells end up damaging other cells that are literally their neighbors, because they're then pushing on these other cells. So a minute center point for an injury ends up expanding. That's what happens also when you think of anger. It actually doesn't just affect you and your immediate relationships. It affects almost everything else in your life as well. And so compression is a thing that we as exercise physiologists or sports therapists, healers, remedial massage, you know, like I want you to kind of think what we do first with trauma is we compress it. And the reason why we compress it is because we want to stop it from spreading. The same happens. I want you to think of this with the emotion anger. I want you to compress it. So I want you to get yourself a hug or wrap your own arms around yourself as often as you need to. You need to actually compress it. You need to keep it contained so it doesn't spread. That means that you don't then verbally explode on other people. just so you feel better because somehow you expressed your anger and it was okay to express yourself because freedom of speech is a thing. Like, seriously, that makes me angry. What else makes you angry, right? What else makes you angry? A million things. So most of us don't remember, and this is what I was talking about at the very beginning of this class. To know is one thing, but to do, and to do when you're in the heat of the emotion, that's different. And so I think we need interventions to help us to allow the emotions to dissipate naturally and evaporate more naturally, right? So some of us actually need a handwritten post-it note on our mirror or on our fridge or on our computer screen that says breathe deeply. Now, when you begin to watch a positive prime session, it says take some big deep breaths, right? Now, I am loyal to and committed to watching a positive prime session because it's that millisecond that reminds me to take a nice big deep breath, a diaphragmatic breath, try to fill up my lungs completely with gorgeous, life-giving, life force energy air, right? You know this progressive muscle relaxation? Who knows it? Okay, awesome. So does somebody want to demonstrate what it is, maybe with your shoulders, and see if everybody else can catch on? No? So you want to squeeze your shoulders so tight that it almost hurts, and don't give up, and squeeze even tighter until you can't bear it any longer. And now relax and let go and feel how different that is. It gives you contrast. Be careful doing that though, because if you do that with your calf muscles, your gastrocs, or you're going to pull a muscle if you're not careful, right? So I think that the interesting point of that is that it's been proven to actually produce the biochemical reaction that you need, that is the anti-venom to your emotions like anger, right? So you think it's silly, but actually you want to consciously produce different chemical cocktails in your body. Mindfulness meditation is actually a lot harder for people than we at first presume. Like, a lot of people given the opportunity to meditate will start to think about the things that are causing them to be angry, right? So it actually is one of those strategies for when you're a lot more advanced at catching what you're paying attention to and then distracting yourself with something that's a little more useful. Physical exercise is absolutely necessary, but I'm going to tell you something, a really quick story. I was at a party not so long ago, and there was a man standing there, and I could see that he was having a little bit of difficulty standing, and he had these braces on his legs, and he was once a famous athlete in Australia. I want you to think of swimming, running, and cycling. I don't want to give away too much in case someone can figure out his identity. Anyway, a couple of years ago, he found out that he had a very rare type of blood cancer. And he started to lose the feeling and the ability to move in his hands and his feet. And so he has these braces on his legs now that help him to actually stand up. They're pretty effective, and they're made of a really fantastic flexible new material, and it gives him some stability and some extra sense of confidence, and he can stand up. And the crazy part about this is there was another Olympian medalist in a wheelchair standing next to him, and we were literally just at a social party, and I could tell that he was almost feeling uncomfortable because he wasn't in a wheelchair, because he could have otherwise been sitting in his wheelchair. But he wants to be at a party. He wants to feel like people can stand up around in this situation. Nobody was sitting down at tables and eating a formal meal. And I actually said to the man with the braces on his legs, do you mind if I ask why you're wearing those? Now, remember, I'm an exercise physiologist and sports therapist, right? So I'm actually kind of curious, and I can ask in a, very diplomatic way. And we ended up having this very long, deep and meaningful conversation. And he said, he's a very successful businessman now, but he was a very successful elite athlete. So that doesn't surprise anybody because he's actually successful. Now, successful in whose terms? Okay, so he makes more than enough to provide for his family, and he lives a very comfortable life in a local area. Let's just call it here in Southeast Queensland. He's not trying to take on the world, and he's not trying to scale his business, or, you know. But we talked about the people who say to him, oh, I'd love to be as successful as you are, mate. And he says, well, can we swap legs? And what's fascinating is that regular exercise is not an option for him to deal with the anger. And so I asked him how he actually copes, because his disability is permanent. And we live inside a system here in Australia where we have something called NDIS, and we can actually be financially provided for in terms of some therapies that will help us to deal with our disabilities. And he has found that what gives him the greatest relief is a simple massage, usually of the Thai variety or the Chinese variety. And they're actually in, like, you know, these little shops in centers, and they're relatively inexpensive. But no, our system will pay for only physiotherapists delivered therapy, which doesn't help him. And so there are systems that make us angry inside the societies that we live in. And I think a lot of us believe that anybody can just go out and exercise, or anybody can just go out and breathe, right? But for somebody who's actually been crippled from here down, breathing is actually really hard. Now, it seems obvious because that disability you can see, but there are a lot of other situations, circumstances, and issues that are people dealing with that we can't see. I'm not just talking about mental health issues, right? So I'm committed to really helping people understand that you can experience this emotion, but you have to be able to reverse the effects, and you have to be able to mitigate the side effects. You have to deal with them. Most people in today's society do not actually know that adequate sleep can fix everything. Our grandmothers knew it. Who heard go to bed and tomorrow will be different? Did anyone? When you had tantrum toddlers, did you send them for a nap? Right. There's wisdom in sleeping. Alrighty. Just in case you haven't got it, the science is really substantial. Anger is very bad for your cardiovascular health, and not very much anger does cause things like arterial sclerosis. So we have to be able to deal with what's making us angry. When I had my pacemaker inserted for my autonomic nervous system disorder, not my heart issue, most people go, oh, so is your heart bad? No, my heart's actually fantastic. They put me in a cardiac MRI machine, and they looked at my heart, and they studied it, and they observed all sorts of different things, and they pumped all sorts of different colors, dyes through me to see what was going, because I'm this wonderful specimen. And interestingly enough, they were like, wow, your heart is amazing. It just so happens that the nerve from your brain is not sending the right messages to the S node. And so it's misbehaving. You know, I can think of it all. Now, I could be very angry that I have a permanent disability. I could be. Except that everybody else who's observing me and who wants to give me their 5 cents of making me feel better tell me that I should be really grateful I'm alive. And depending upon my mood of that day, I want to punch them in the head. Not a very elegant way to cope with how angry I am at their ridiculousness. But now I have a new offering from my friend with the legs that don't work. Hey, how about we swap hearts? How about we swap autonomic nervous systems? And let's see how you cope with life, right? That doesn't help me though. Does it? Retaliating or being a smart aleck or whatever. Now, interestingly enough, I've got to be able to deal with this emotion. And yet, from a quantum physics point of view, whatever I could or would or should be angry about, guess what? I'm in the vibration of being angry. So what happens is the universe sends me more circumstances, more situations, and more people who can help me to feel more angry. It's shocking, right? That's not abundance and prosperity and skipping through the sunflower fields. That's not making more money. That's not serving all of you, right? So, what can we do? There's so much research that talks about, from that mirror neurons and emotional contagion point of view, you being angry actually impacts at least 11 other people and literally creates the chain reaction that makes them feel more angry about their circumstances and situation and people in their lives. And it literally spreads exponentially. And people think it's okay for them to express their anger. No, not so much. Feel angry in private, right? Go do the things, participate in the interventions that help you to deal with it. There are a whole heap of resources that we can send to you if you really want to dive down deep. For those of us who want to move on with, okay, so, I mean, how do I recognize I'm feeling angry? Well, anything you're mildly irritated by, anything that makes you feel slightly frustrated, anywhere where you've got some resentment that's lingering, anytime you're actually disappointed, it's a red flag for you are building up these little pieces that will escalate into you being angry. And then one day you'll be really angry and you'll think, where did that come from? Millions of moments of disappointment. And it's all about your expectations. And so we do need time on our own to think about, okay, well, so what did I expect in this situation? And what am I responsible for? And am I really accountable for my side of the equation? Right. All sorts of other closely related cousins, right? The reality is that it's a big deal, isn't it? And it's a big deal in today's society. Most people don't really know that the antidote to anger and the opposite of anger is actually peace. And that means that you are no longer expecting of other people or the circumstance or the situation to meet your expectations, because you have surrendered and let go of your expectations. Peace. Peace is the opposite. And the more peaceful you can feel, the more you will actually have your body producing the chemical cocktail that actually helps you deal with anger. When you're feeling more peaceful, you're actually more cooperative. You actually cooperate with yourself as well. And when you're actually cooperating mostly with yourself and your own expectations, somehow you live a life where you demonstrate more genuine compassion. And that's really trying to think about why somebody might be behaving the way they are based upon 100,000 little things that you can't possibly know about. You think you do, but you can't possibly know about. All right, so let's talk about positive priming. It has been proven that when you are positively primed, you're less likely to feel any of those emotions that lead to you feeling angry. Yay, rationale for positive priming. Wonder why I created it. Because you know what the funny thing is I grew up in an environment where family members were angry and they expressed their anger. I grew up in an environment where I observed other people thought it was okay to be angry and to basically behave in inappropriate and I would say unpleasant ways when they were angry, and there seemed to be no dire consequences, and it was accepted, and then it was turn a blind eye or try to have a stiff upper lip. And so the funny thing about positive priming is that when you are positively primed, you are, quite frankly, living life as if you've actually got the vaccination, right? I know everybody understands these analogies these days. Now, the funny thing is that we have an anxiety epidemic. Who knows that? And do you know that a couple of years ago, I actually heard that if we could get people to not be angry, we would have people who are not anxious. That was the bottom line. But most people who are anxious don't want to deal with what has made them angry. Either it's something that they're holding on to from their childhood or from their marriage, their divorce, whatever it might be, right? So I literally set about creating sessions, and we've got the best one ever now. It's healing anger from stress to serenity. I am so concerned about the number of people who experience anxiety. And the funny thing is that I've noticed that more and more women going through menopause, and of course my reticular activating system is actually searching for that for women who are in their mid-40s to mid-50s, either perimenopausal or menopausal. The bizarre thing is that the chemical cocktail or the hormones in the body are causing these women to feel like they're experiencing anxiety, where actually it's just a hormonal imbalance, but it's making them more stressed about everything. And of course, they're not sleeping very well. And so all of the interventions that help you are actually pretty difficult to maintain or dive into. I do want to tell you that there is an entire part of our course, which would be the elongated, expanded, prolonged version of this course. And it's about forgiveness. So forgiveness is a very, very, very important part of the recipe, the ingredients to dealing with anger, and of course, helping you to be positively primed such that less actually causes you to feel frustrated or disappointed, and actually be the kind of person who looks at your expectations and your assumptions and doesn't even get yourself into the position whereby you're observing or judging and then coming to this conclusion that it's all right for you to feel angry, right? So we've actually created an incredible ebook with a lot of extra resources, because I think that the majority of us need to go into an intense deep dive around forgiveness, but mostly forgiveness that is directed towards ourselves, first and foremost. Directed for all of the mistakes that we've made, directed towards all of the judgments that have turned out to be not accurate or not correct or not fair or not reasonable. I actually think that the majority of the relationship issues that we have in life are actually stemming from a part of ourselves that we haven't forgiven. Right? So there are actually a few positive prime sessions that focus on forgiveness. The other thing is that being patient with yourself whilst you're actually experiencing one of these heated emotions, and we call it heated actually because the body literally does heat up. Like you literally do produce more from your sweat glands. If we took your temperature, which we did do with skin conductance and eye tracking and heart rate variability and EEG when we're doing our research, you actually literally do heat up, excuse me, when you're experiencing emotions that are incredibly negative. And so there is a blood pressure issue, etc. So being patient is actually an art. And most people think that they're patient, but in fact, they're not at all. And I was noticing that as I was trying to come to terms with a way of being that was not as destructive, I literally had to focus on developing patience, right? And patience, of course, is about non-attachment. It's about, can you be truly serene and absolutely content with no ifs or buts, right? Right here and right now with the way that your life is. If you cannot make another cent, if you cannot have another romantic encounter, if you can't climb your mountain, or you can't go for your run, or see, a lot of people will tell me that they love running, but the minute that they have an injury and they can't run, they actually can't cope with their lives because they're actually not patient with themselves, right? So there is an art to surrendering and letting go. And what I am actually really offering you here is, instead of charging $999 or $497, or Positive Prime is the most extraordinary course for you. And all you have to do is watch a range of the sessions that are available to you on speed 1 or 2 and really contemplate, like think critically about the self-fulfilling prophecies, the positive statements, the lessons, the wisdom that's being shared. All right. Now, if you want to kickstart all of that, yes, of course, we do have a special offer. I have created a new ebook. I'm very proud of it. Mayumi has done an exceptional job with the rest of her team members, and we love it. And we've actually shared it with quite a few of my personal clients, and they think it's been very helpful. And so we're selling our Positive Calm book in and of and by itself. We're actually selling them as printed versions, or it's a PDF, it's an ebook. I have noticed that a lot of people have something they just can't quite reframe that's causing them to feel angry. And I am exceptional, like truly excellent at helping somebody to reframe something inside 30 minutes. I'm provocative though. So some people don't like what they hear because it's not what they want to hear. All right. So do not sign up for this if you don't want a little bit of tough love. And yeah, the energy healing, Kim, dives into nothing but the opposite of tough love. It's super soft, universal, divine love. And so here we also have a Serenity ebook. Now, if you were to have a one-on-one session with me and you were to buy the 2 separate ebooks, you would be spending more than the $99 US. Today, if you do that, you can either click to purchase or not. And I'm actually going to go to the page and show you, or use your phone and scan. It's $99, and it does include a 1-hour one-on-one virtual or online consultation, coaching, and healing with me, right? So who wants to see the ebook? You ready? Let's have a quick flick. So Positive Calm. This is a wonderful course for you that does go about a little bit more in depth. What is anger? What causes anger? How do you know that you're feeling angry? How do you even notice when others are feeling angry? And then you have a choice to remove yourself so that you can actually prevent the emotional contagion, right? What to do if you actually can't remove yourself? What's grief got to do with it? What's the survival instinct got to do with it? A little bit more of the understanding. I think that it is important to keep in mind why feeling angry is actually really bad for you. It might motivate you to engage in some of the self-care practices more enthusiastically. It does talk a little bit more about what to do to manage anger, right? So it's going to dive into why and how certain interventions work. It's going to, in case you don't know about the glymphatic system, talk about that. It's going to talk about gratitude in particular, which of course is one of my favorite subjects. As the best-selling author of I Am Grateful for Life, I used to do lots of keynote speeches about gratitude and the science that was done about, you know, expressing gratitude and so forth. And of course, I came across Mike McCulloch and Robert Emmons. Not last year, the year before, I met with Louis Schwartzberg, and this was just as he was releasing his Gratitude Revealed film. It's absolutely fantastic. We have actually put some links into some really amazing TED Talks, and guess what? You get I Am Grateful for Life as an ebook. You just click through and download it. Then there are a lot of really important questions that you can ask yourself when you're trying to work through why you're feeling angry. How is it that you dissipate this? How do you get it to evaporate? And there's a lot more in the activities. For those of you who don't know about the beautiful Hawaiian Ho'opono, I'm going to incorporate that actually in the energy healing that we're going to do very soon. But there's a whole heap more about Ho'opono in this particular ebook. There's a lot about forgiveness. There's some great TED Talks that I really highly recommend. I went through lots and lots and lots. Mayumi went through lots and lots and lots. We chose the best ones so that, you know, you can get straight to it. We talk about anger and the effects on relationships. We're actually going to do a real course on relationships and on the positive psychology research and neuroscience research around loneliness and so forth. That's coming. Of course, we talk about positive prime. And then we talk about my newest treatment that I have created. I've been inspired by what I experienced at a place called the Pyramids of Chi. You can look it up. It's in Bali. It's an extraordinary place. It was created by friends of mine. And I had a treatment there called Light, Sound, Vibration, LSV. And I was completely fascinated. And so then I went back basically to the drawing board and I created an amazing treatment, and it's called Holistic Harmonic Flow. And it incorporates very advanced sound healing, but as vibroacoustic sound healing, which is not just, you know, there's no me doing crystal bowls, even though I love a class where I listen to the crystal bowls. What I want are frequencies that are then channeled into a vibration device that produces that vibration like an ultrasound, because remember, I'm coming from the sports therapist side of things, and I want to be able to ensure that the vibration goes into the body and effectively resonates with. And just as we know the heart rhythms and the brain waves, each of our organs and systems, when they're healthy, have their own waves, like your immune system and your liver and your kidneys and so forth. So I put together an extraordinary treatment. Unfortunately, you have to come to Australia and come to the Noosa hinterland if you want to have that treatment. It can't happen unless it's actually on a treatment table that's water. And so it's an incredible like water bed, but a very special custom-made water bed, and it has the vibration devices inside it to amplify the actual vibrations and so forth. But sound healing and music that will allow you to deal with anger is really a part of the therapy that I would recommend for you. And so there's lots more activities that you can actually talk about with others, or you can do yourself. And we talk a lot about journaling, and there are more resources. So anyway, that's the book. Beautiful, hey? Do you want to see the new Positive Prime session? Should we do that? Okay. All right. Let's dive back in here. For those of you who want to take advantage of this, here's your offer. Now, for those of you who want to find out more about that holistic harmonic flow, you can go to thenautilusretreat.com. And of course, if you want to just buy the ebooks by themselves, you can do so directly from here, or a coaching session with me at some other time. Alrighty, so as I said, this class is actually part of the entire course that is Living a Positively Primed Life, being a change maker in your own life, healing yourself. And I kind of think that we should probably up the annual price to more like $4.97 because of what we offer. Every single Positive Prime session is really a class or a course in and of and by itself. So if you're not yet a yearly member, I would encourage you to become one. Let's go to the dashboard. We've released a couple of sessions just recently. There's an amazing one on Atomic Habits by James Clear, another really incredible one, How to Win Friends and Influence People, from Dale Carnegie. Even though I read these books a gazillion years ago, or this one much more recently, unless I'm applying the lessons, And unless I'm regularly seeing the messages, they're not being reinforced. And so I love these sessions because it actually reminds me of what I read, and somehow it encourages me to actually do some of what I said to myself, I'm going to do that. So for those of you who love Positive Prime, the truth is I would never watch a Positive Prime that I haven't actually personalized. Now, this is brand new today, absolutely brand new today. So I'm going to quickly go personalize it. Just recently, I uploaded some new photographs, but I'm going to show you uploading. And so let me just click to upload. I'm just going to search for one. I'm going to search for one. I'm going through my own photographs here. All right, so I'm uploading one. Doesn't take too long. I would upload at least a fresh one of yourself. I would absolutely encourage that in each session you have, because there are 1,000 flashcards, I would suggest that you have at least 100 of your own images. Now, what's 100 of your own images? I don't know. I just upload a couple. I mean, 10 is better than none, right? Or 20 is better than 10, and 50 is better than 10. And so whatever you need to do to get to 100 uploaded pictures, however long it takes you, it's, pretty much a good idea. And so as you just saw, I uploaded this one and now it's here. And of course I need to select all. And on this page, there are 50 images, right? So each page has 50 images. So I'm just going to choose these 50 and now I'm going to go and play the session. And those 50 are now going to appear inside the session. Now, of course, I've got lots and lots of pages of photos. And so I can sit back and enjoy. Now, I understand the science. And so I allow myself, I give myself permission to watch a Positive Prime on speed 1. For at least a couple of minutes. I want my brain waves to change into the synchronization of alpha and theta. I want the bursts of gamma. I want that for my brain. It makes my brain healthier. It helps me to live life in a way that I enjoy more. So I watch a Positive Prime session that I've personalized on speed 1. For at least the first couple of minutes. I just allow myself to let go of the interruptions and the distractions and the worries and the concerns of my day. Or what am I responsible for? Or what do I have to do? Or where should I be? Just be. Now, it has beautiful music, and some of our other sessions now have really fantastic music. So I'm just going to share this over my voice. After you've settled in, feel free to go and increase it by at least 1 or 2. But I would really recommend that you watch as much of a session on speed 1 or 2 and you really contemplate the self-fulfilling prophecies, the statements. Take photos of the things that are around you that make you feel happy. righty. I'm actually really loving the new sessions that we've created. And to celebrate today with our special, guess what? We have a PDF with all 200 of the statements that are in that session. Great, hey? We have these PDFs that we will continue to share with our paying subscribers that you'll be able to download. There is actually the Win Friends and Influence one that's available to all subscribers now through a special page, basically where you click the link and you download it. All right. But for some of us who don't want to watch a positive prime with all of the images and we actually just want to print out some of these, then this is available to you. Love it. Thank you so much for spending this precious time. I will look forward to seeing you all again. Mwah. Bye. Love you all.
Bye. Thank you.